I think that anytime you get an opportunity to talk about money, I mean, money is everything.
Right.
Money is life. So anytime you get a chance to talk about it, let's talk about it. What I found is going out there and talking about financial services to anybody and everybody, just having those everyday conversations with people and seeing what their perspective is, because there are so many different myths about money and how to manage it and how you should get it and so forth. So talking to people now, it kind of like my niche, I feel, because there's so much misinformation. The purpose of school is to get you ready for your career after you get out of school to make money.
Right.
So what is the purpose of that
Getting
if you don't
money
if
and you're
you
not a manager?
right if you get the money now and now you don't know what to do? All financial independence means is the ability to do the things that you want to do when you want to do them.
Freedom.
How can I turn this $10 into 10,000? What?
That don't even make sense.
What?
Like, that's never been
Yeah.
done.
So if someone tells you that they can run, it's not real.
Absolutely.
And I want to challenge parents. I want to challenge anyone with kids 0 to 18. Start talking to them. Start having that conversation with them. I think part of the disconnect is parents are living their lives. They're making financial decisions, but they're not including their kids.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the new episode of the Myles Hype Podcast. As you know, as always, the vision and goal of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist, always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right? So I got a special pod today, got a special guest on the pod today, and we're going to be discussing a special topic. Today's topic, we're going to be discussing mastering your money. And on the pod with me today is a guest who I have known from I was born, basically, right? I have my actual cousin. This is a real, true family member of mine, Mr. Richard Pinder, joining me today on the pod. Let's clap him up, guys. Welcome up. Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate you joining me on the pod today.
Yes.
Talking about mastering your money.
Yes.
So first of all, how are you? How's everything?
Everything's good, man. Everything's been going good. Everything's good. I'm just happy to be here. Proud of this pod, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it today. I think that anytime you get an opportunity to talk about money, I mean, money is everything.
Right.
Money is life. So anytime you get a chance to talk about it, let's talk about it.
Yeah, just recently, on one of my last pods, I was talking about how money is the answer to all things.
Yeah.
Right. And there's this thing that we grew up on, our generation, where money is the root of all evil. That's not entirely true, right? It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. But we need money to function. We need money to do everything that we would like to do on this earth. So being able to master it is key, and that's what I want to talk about today. So for starters, let's give the audience a background of yourself, your educational background. Let's start with your educational background.
Sure. I've done my bachelor's degree, my undergraduate degree at. Well, I started my undergrad at UB. Well, the former CUB, yes.
College of the Bahamas at the time.
I did 2 years there before I went away to Acadia University in Wolfville, Nova Scotia. So I have my bachelor's in business management. And then I did my master's in business management at Nova Southeastern in Miami, Florida. And so I've been doing various certification courses in financial services. I've been in the industry for 17 years. And so I've been doing this for a while.
How do you like certifications? Because I know a lot, like your field in the financial field, there are all these certifications that is best to get or that you should get, right? How is it advantageous for you to always be up to date with certifications, or are they not as important as I think they are?
So I think when it comes to certifications, I think the main thing is getting the knowledge, not really the certification.
Gotcha.
The certification is just to say, hey, I've done this particular course. But I think, especially in the financial services industry, is keeping abreast of what's going on in the market.
But getting the certifications allows you to make more money with your company. Like if you have
Correct.
those
Yes, it does.
certifications under your belt.
And it helps you to depending on what you want to do, because like you said, there are so many careers in financial services industry. So it just depends on what you want to do.
Got you.
Yeah, it depends on what you want to
So
do.
you say you've been in the industry for 17 years. So let's talk about your professional background.
Yeah, so I've been doing so many different things over these 17 years, from RTA services, which means persons who are buying shares in various companies, assisting them with purchasing, selling, keeping abreast of their company documents. I've done client services, I've done marketing, I've done onboarding client accounts, and now I do day-to-day. My day-to-day is banking, actually, and operations.
Okay.
But of course, client services is something I do all the time as well.
Sure.
So,
And is there any aspect of like the areas that you've worked in that you like the best? Like, is what's your favorite?
what I'm doing now is actually what I feel like I like best.
Really?
Because what I found is going out there and talking about financial services to anybody and everybody. Just having those everyday conversations with people and seeing what their perspective is, because there are so many different myths about money and how to manage it and how you should get it and so forth. So talking to people now, it's kind of like my niche, I feel, because there's so much misinformation.
I can't. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to talk about.
Yeah.
Because there are so much misconceptions when it
Yes.
comes to like money
Yes.
and money management and
Yes.
investments and finances. And we're going to tackle all of that. Well, we're going to tackle as much as we can.
As much as we can.
Yeah, today.
Yeah, but one thing I want to say too is our younger generation. I know you talk about it a lot on your pod as well. And that's kind of what I've been doing for the past 10, 11 years. We've had a program at our company where we go into high schools and we do financial literacy for high school students. And so I definitely love that, because I feel like the curriculum is good, of course, but you got to give them real life as well.
And so I feel like financial literacy classes should be a part of our educational system.
101.
Like I don't even, the first time I had any class on finance, like life finance, I'm not talking about like accounting and stuff.
Yeah.
Like understanding money and the value of money and how to manage was in college.
Yeah, it was outside. It was outside of the
know,
regular day-to-day.
I mean, outside of like my dad teaching me, some money management and principles when it comes to finances, like educationally, I didn't really have a class on that until college, and that's crazy to me.
That's crazy to me too, because I mean, think about it like this, right? No matter what career, okay, the purpose of school is to get you ready for your career.
Right.
After you get out of school to make money.
Right.
So what is the purpose of that
if you don't money if
if you get the money now and now you don't know what to do.
And I feel like that's the rat race they want to keep us in, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to teach us how to manage money. They want us to work for the rest of our lives, dedicate 65 years,
Right.
8 hours a day to making money or what we feel is money, but not being able to manage that money correctly, to where we have to continue working for these companies for forever.
And not even that, I mean, the changes that they've made now where let's say they do entrepreneurial studies, right? Once again, how are you going to run a business if you don't know how to manage money? I don't care what business it is.
Absolutely.
Plumber, electrician, hairdresser, it doesn't matter. You need money to operate that business.
Me and my wife are always talking about like creatives in particular, right? Like people who are creative are always able to like create,
Yes.
right? And develop and show their skills and how skillful they are in different aspects of their lives. But when it comes to money management, like most creatives can't stay in business or like can't stay afloat because they don't know how to manage money well.
Correct.
And like you're right, it doesn't matter the profession, doesn't matter what you're doing in life. Everybody needs to know how to manage money.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And so, again, thank you for joining us today, man.
Happy
so
to be here.
let's hop right in. So
Absolutely.
the topic today is mastering your money, right? And one of the first questions I want to ask you is, what does financial independence mean to you?
So financial independence, I mean, that's a big word. That's a big slogan, right? I mean, that could mean so many things to so many different people. But I think at its base, I mean, when you think about, let's call it the small man, as they say, to the person with money, all financial independence mean is the ability to do the things that you want to do when you want to do them.
Freedom.
Right? And you don't have to be like, okay, like for just about everyday people, you have to look at your budget. You have to figure out, okay, if I have X amount, how am I going to make this stretch? Can I do the things that I want to do? right? Or at the end of the month, you got to figure out, I got these 10 things, let's call them I have to pay. How am I going to allocate this money amongst those 10 things? So financial independence would mean you have a budget, but you don't have to be governed by that solely. Like you could add something to that, or you could say, I have this dream, I could just go take this $1,000 or this $2,000 and go do what I want to do.
And financial independence is relative, right? Because what would make me financially independent, may not make you financially independent, or you may become financially independent faster than
Yes.
I will. So it's different strokes for different folks,
Yes.
right? And it just depends on the type of freedom you would like, the type of life you would like, the level of finances that you would need to get to in order to achieve that financial independence. So for someone whose interest is in becoming financially independent, where is a good place to start on their journey?
Easy. Goal setting. Goal setting. Goal setting is
financial goal setting.
Right. Financial goal setting. And one tip I would give persons is, whatever your goals are, you have to put a number next to them. It makes no sense to say, I want to start a business, I want to travel, I want to buy this, I want to build a house, if you don't know how much that's going to cost you.
So does the number have to make sense?
The number doesn't have to make sense, but it has to be relative, though.
My number is 100 million.
Right. So let's say, for example, okay, it have to be within a ballpark,
Gotcha.
right? So for example, like I said, starting a business, you would have had to done some research to say, I'm going to need X amount of material, equipment, labor, overhead, whatever it is. How much of that am I going to need? It needs to be attainable. Because like you said, let's say you use a large exponential number, then it's going to sound like I'm never going to reach this. And then you're going to put that dream to the back burner.
Sure.
So the number needs to be attainable.
So once you set the number, you set. So essentially you're saying you set this number and work backwards from the number.
Correct. You work towards
a strategy.
That number. So you set that number. So goal setting is important because once you set that goal, now it disciplines you.
Sure.
It brings all kind of other factors into play.
Sure.
Because now you have that goal. Let's say you write it on a mirror, you write it in your bathroom, you write it wherever you read. Now every time you make a decision, every decision is geared towards that goal.
Right.
Yeah. So I know that I can't do X, Y, and Z, or I can't spend X, Y, and Z because I'm working towards this 20,000 or this 15,000 or this 10,000. I need to start this business or buy this property or whatever the dream may be. So you know that would discipline you, and that would cause you to be like, okay, this is what it's going to take for me to be happy financially.
Sure. So when is a good time to start?
Absolutely. That's a good question. It goes back to what we talked about in our introduction, where it starts from young. The most important thing that you could understand is compounding factors, compounding interest. The earlier you start, the better it is for you. The less debt you get into when you're younger, the better it is for you. I think one of the other myths that we always get into is, as soon as persons graduate, as soon as they get their first job, persons want them to go into debt without understanding how that debt is going to affect the rest of their life. And so once you start to see, okay, I'm 18, 19, graduated, I got my first job, whether it be you're working and going to school, whatever the money is coming in, start saving at least $1, start saving $5. I think that one of the myths about investing that we talk about too is persons believe that they need the money to start investing. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's kind of
counterproductive.
Yeah, it's counterproductive and it's illogical.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you can't manage $1, how are you going to manage 10? How are you going to manage 10?
Yep.
Your goal is 100 million. What are you going to do with 100 million?
Yep.
That blow your mind. You never learn how to manage 10.
Yep.
So to me, it's illogical, right? Because I mean, I had a conversation with someone the other day, and they was like, "Oh, I'll come check you when I get my first million." That don't make sense to me.
And that's crazy, right? Because you're right. A lot of people say, I'll start investing when I have like excess money to invest, and I'm like, that's the worst decision that you could make, right? Because the money that you're like your salary, for example, you should, and you talk about goal setting, right? And picking a number, you should be able to goal set your salary to say, I'm going to take a certain percentage of my salary and dedicate that to investing, dedicate that to savings, dedicate that to putting towards my future, right? But that can't happen if you keep saying, well, I'm going to start investing and saving when I reach this, when I have this amount of money, right? Because if you never get that amount of money, you ain't gonna ever start investing.
So what, you're gonna start investing 40, 50, 60 when it goes back to these other factors. People start thinking about retiring when they're 50 or 60. I mean, at that point, you've already passed those years where you could maximize your earnings. So I mean, to me, you have to start as early as you can. You have to start with $1. So
for our generation, right? So us growing up, we didn't get any financially literacy classes.
Yeah.
Or financial education at that outside of our home,
Right.
right? We didn't get it in our educational system, whether it's at high school or certain levels of college. So for someone like you say, start young. But how does that look, right? Because as kids, like, man, we're not thinking about saving, right? We're thinking about buying the things that we want and splurging on things that we may not necessarily need. But we see others doing it, or we see others with it, and we want to indulge ourselves.
Yeah.
But how do you get a young person to adhere to and adopt the mindset of, I need to start investing and saving from a young age?
You used the word mindset, and I want to say it can be done. And I want to challenge parents. I want to challenge anyone with kids 0 to 18. Start talking to them. Start having that conversation with them. I think part of the disconnect is parents are living their lives. They're making financial decisions, but they're not including their kids, right? And so we're all guilty of that. Of course, you have to filter it based on their age and the content that you want to give to them, but you have to be real with them, and you have to show them, hey, Mommy, Daddy, we're making sacrifices. We're doing these things for the family, but this is how things are getting done. These are the choices that we have to make. And I think once I read something back when you get kids to buy into that, they can start appreciating that. Because I think sometimes we discount how intelligent they are and how they can comprehend that, hey, this takes money. You know what I mean? So I'll give you even a personal example. Even for me now, I try to do that now. I have a 5-year-old, and every time we go to the store and she says she wants something, right? So I said, let's call it the food store. And she says she wants this candy or whatever. Okay, Daddy has a budget of X, Y, and Z for the grocery store. If we go above that budget, now Daddy has to do something else. Now that may mean you may not get lunch for a day at school. So you got to give them the consequences of overspending.
If she say she wanted the candy, okay, that means tomorrow ain't no
right,
lunch.
that tomorrow ain't no lunch, or that means I have 3 kids, so that means y'all can't eat dinner. So I mean, you got to give them the real. You have to be honest with them, and you have to give them these scenarios these bite-sized scenarios that they can appreciate.
So it starts in the home.
It starts in the home.
It starts in the home. And I remember,
or anyone that has influence over these kids.
The point that you said where you like, parents should include kids in financial conversations. I think that's important, right? Yeah. And I said that quite a number of times on this pod, because it was something that I grew up with, right? My dad included us, my sister and I, in the financial conversations. Even if what we said or what we suggested wasn't taken, right? We were a part of the conversation, and
at least you had an idea of what was going on,
right? And even and sometimes what we said may not have made sense. My dad would use that as a teaching moment and be like, well, this is why, that's not a good decision, and we should think of it this way. Right. So including the kids early is important to change the mindset. I think that's great advice. So for all our parents out there and for non-parents, you younger individuals who aspire to have kids one day, start to think about ways that you can incorporate these conversations with your kids, as they grow. Because starting from a young age, like if I had the financial education from my high school age, like half of the decisions that I made, in high school and out of high school when it comes to finances and spending, I probably wouldn't have made, right? I probably would have been a little more disciplined. I wasn't too bad, right?
No,
but I was ridiculous at some point. So you're right. So you talked about myths, right? Yes. And one of the big myths that you and I discussed was the fact how people think that they need to accumulate a certain amount of money before they start investing. And I think we agree that that's nonsense.
Yeah,
right?
that doesn't compute.
It's best to start as soon as you can.
Start with $1. Right?
What are some other myths that you've come across that we could debunk right now?
So I think another myth that people have is that where they're so afraid, they're so afraid to do anything with their money because of things that have happened in the market, in the world. So they're scared to even invest $1, right? So one of the things that I would say is start conservatively. You don't have to start with something that's going to lose money or this risky investment or this new company that comes to the market. Start with something conservative. Start with something that gets you a fixed income, a fixed interest rate, something that will at least allow you to build confidence. So don't think about the things that are going to cause you to lose money. I think when persons think about investing is they go straight to the things that are going to lose money.
Right.
And it kind of detracts them away from, okay, even I don't even want to test it because I'm scared.
So you talk about fear, right?
Yeah.
And the people are just scared.
They're just
to
scared.
invest, right?
Yeah.
So how do you counter that with risk management? Like how do you manage risk when it comes to investing? Well, obviously you said to start small, right? Be conservative when you start. But what are other ways that you can manage the risk that is obviously involved when it comes to investing?
So I would start with this joke, right? Everybody knows in Bahamian culture, part of the way that we get into problems is we want quick money, but we're scared to lose it, right? So hey, someone will always come to me, hey man, how can I turn this $10 into 10,000? What?
That don't even make sense.
What?
Like that's never been.
Yeah.
done.
So if someone tells you that they can, run. It's not real.
Absolutely.
It's not real, right?
Absolutely.
So
you know what? Okay. Sorry, I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
yeah, no. So my thing is be realistic. Be realistic about your expectations. I think that a lot of times our fear allows us to not be realistic with what we can do, and so it doesn't allow us to start.
Right.
So if you say, hey, this investment that I'm getting, I'm only going to get $20 on it or $10 on it. At least you're getting something on it. But you have to be realistic about that.
So two things, right? You have a lot of persons when they invest, like someone that say, "Hey, I would turn this $10 into 10,000."
Yeah,
they dead serious, bro. And it's like, dog, this ain't a magic.
Right.
This ain't a magic pot. Like you don't put 5 cents in and get.
There
5
is
million.
nothing in the world that could turn 10 into 10,000 just like that. No.
I always say like fast money don't last long,
No.
right? It's slow and steady, right? And as you compound interest, like you said in the intro, building wealth happens with compounding finances and compounding revenue over years.
Correct.
Right, over time, and that allows us to accumulate more the ability to become to experience freedom or financial freedom much quicker than we would have had we start or if we start at a later date in life. All right, so that's discussing risk, right? We talked about some risk management. So what I think another way, right, that we can manage risk is to diversify, right? What's your view or what's your recommendations when it comes to diversity in investments? That's
a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I want to leave one very important message. Don't diversify for diversifying's sake. A lot of times, persons, they hear this big word diversify and they just start spreading $10 around 10 places. With all due respect,
sure,
all of those different investments that you have, they're earning within that same range. So all you're doing is spreading yourself thin, and you have to consider the fees, you have to consider the charges, you have to consider the time frame for these different investments. So don't diversify yourself just because, or just because it sounds good. I know you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, but diversifying for diversifying's sake is not beneficial.
Okay.
It's not beneficial.
So
what you probably need to do is choose, let's say, 2 or 3 of the best product based on your risk profile.
Okay.
So what you do is you fill out a risk profile and you'd say, I'm a conservative investor, I'm a moderate investor, I'm someone who wants to take a little bit of risk. So maybe you choose 1 or 2 different investments that kind of fit that profile and stick within that and see how that goes for you for a while. And then maybe diversification for you would be, after I've seen how that goes for a while, maybe either I escalate or I de-escalate or I go left or go right, depending on how those things are performing. But don't spread around to 10 different things.
I think diversification for me has more to do with like risk levels, right?
Okay.
So I may want to be a bit more riskier in like certain investments, but I also want to have a set of investments that
a fallback.
That isn't risky, right?
Correct.
It's low levels.
You always need that.
And I think those are good ways to manage risk, but also be diversified in a way where you're able to earn a lot. If these risky investments do well, but if they crash out, like you still have this safety pin in the less riskier investments.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And that's where a portfolio comes into play as well. And so if you're that person who's just starting out, you might want to just start conservative.
Portfolio, got you.
And just build yourself.
Got you.
Yeah, just build yourself.
What are good conservative investments that you would recommend?
Yeah, so, in this particular market, I would say you have to be careful and you have to do your research. In this day and age, there's no excuse for you not to have that information.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, there's so much information out there. So my only caveat would be you have to be careful and you have to get the right information, not just any information. I mean, there's 5 million articles we could read and they would tell you about these different products, these different indexes, these different pennies this, penny that. But you have to be careful and you have to understand the pros, the cons, how to get in, how to get out, the long term, the time frame. There's different things that you have to understand. So I would say there are different ways that you would have to do it because there are different types of investors. There's an investor who you weren't trying to get into all that technicality, right? You just want to invest, get your money, and know that if you need it, you could get it back out.
You said something just now. I was trying to remember something in our that we were talking about, and I couldn't remember what I wanted to say. But now you just reminded me of it, right? And when we're talking about like getting information and but not believing all the information you get, right? I want to say this, and like this could go back to like the myths of investing. If something is too good to be true, chances are it is.
Yes.
Y'all hear me? Like if someone coming to y'all with this proposal, this investment proposal saying, hey, if you give me this $100, I could turn this around and you get $5,000. Like, I don't know if y'all, any of y'all familiar with the loom trend that happened? Bro.
Yeah, and that's what I was referring to when I was talking about. That's why Bahamians get sucked into it so
this
easily.
Loom, this flower water pedal crap. I have some friends. I have a friend who was in it, and he was in it for a cycle, and that's how they get you, right? They let you go through a cycle, and
it always starts out good. Yeah, it starts out good. Yeah, it starts good,
bro. The people who was controlling the loan just disappear.
Yeah,
and my boy lost all his money. You know what I mean? So like these things where I call them get rich quick schemes. Like those are non-existent, right? You have the quick stars of our era, the Amways of our era. Like a lot of y'all don't even know what Amway is, right? I date myself. But actually, Amway wasn't even in my era. That's my parents' era.
Yeah.
But Quickstar was in my era. Quickstar was the Amway of our time, right? And that's where like these multi-level marketing schemes where you have to join this organization and then get a lot of people under you, and as they make money, you be like, bro. Like whenever people come to me with that, and I'd be like, nah, bro, I'm good. And I try to discourage anyone from like joining them because, like, it's a ploy. Yeah. It's a ploy, and they're preying on individuals just literally wanting to get rich quick, like trying to turn $10 into 10,000, like super quick. And so those things are non-existent.
I want to jump in here right quick. I want to tell a personal story, and I'm just being honest. Over the years, being in this industry, if I'm being honest, I actually listen to it. I listen to when persons, and I've been to the meetings. I've even signed up for $500 once or twice.
How recent? What's the name of the last thing you signed up
I'm not going to tell you the last thing.
Because, bro, if it's been in the last 10 years, like, come on, bro.
No. Let me explain why, though. Let me explain why. For me, as a financial advisor, it's educational for me.
Got you.
Trust me, I go into it with my eyes open.
Got you.
So, like, that's what I would always say. I never put money into it that I'm, like I say, it's $500. I might have put $100. I know what it was,
sure.
But I went to the meeting. I heard because I need to know. I need to know what's out there, and what people are selling.
No, that's
smart. Because people always come to us. People always come to me. And by the time they come to me, it's too late. They've already put their money in. Now they're trying to figure out how they get it back. Yeah. So I need to know. Yeah. So as a financial advisor, sometimes I listen to it. I go to the meeting. Yeah. Sometimes I'll log in. If it's a Zoom meeting, I'll log in. Yeah. I'll check it out. Sure.
No, that makes sense. I mean, again, if it's for educational purposes,
it's strictly for education. Trust me. Once I hear the spiel, I know. Yeah. I know what time it is. Yeah. But sometimes I check it out just to see what's going on. I
got you. No, that's smart. And
because they come a dime a dozen.
And because I even come to think of it, I haven't heard about one of them since Loom. I think that's the last one I've heard of. Maybe I'm not just paying attention.
There's plenty.
Man, and they were so prevalent, like growing up.
Yeah.
Like probably every other month.
Every other month.
I used to have a friend saying, "Hey, bro, I just
Sign up,
join us.
join
Come
it. Yeah,
come
come
join
boys.
under me.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can get people joining under you. We can get rich, dog." I'm like, "Nah, bro."
Yeah, so sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's good. I speak for myself. I definitely wouldn't say this for the average person. But if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna take the chance, please don't use your grocery money.
Yeah.
Or your light bill money.
Yeah, use play money.
Yeah, use money. This is an extra $100 you wouldn't mind losing.
You know that I ain't getting this back.
Right. Don't use your grocery money and then you call your financial advisor crying. I mean, at that point, the ship is sailed.
Yeah.
So
we talking about investing. We talking about starting early. It all comes down to budgeting, right?
Yes.
I think budgeting is super important. How important is budgeting for us to reach our financial goals?
So I want to circle back to something before I talk about budgeting. I need to give one tip. Pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. So you're not going to know how much money you have. Let's call it extra money for lack of a better word.
Yep.
You're not going to know how much money you have unless you know what you're working from, right? Because what I feel is a lot of times persons, they want to save, they have the desire to save, but for whatever reason, their bills are so tight, they're not writing it down, they don't know what they're spending. And so you only could start saving from what you have, right? If you're making $1,000 and your bills are 1,001, you're not in a position to save. You're not in a position to invest. And so you're only going to know if you write things down, right? And so a lot of times a person say, I have a budget, it's in my head, it's in my calculator or whatever. I plan in my head before I spend. That's not good enough.
Bro, I remember I used to do that.
That's not good enough. Nah, that's foolishness. No, that's not
in my head. Like
no. And I'll give you a perfect example why that won't work. If it's in your head, you go out on the weekend now. In your head, you say, "Oh,
I only spend this.
I only going to spend one little 150, one little 100."
And you get that balance, credit card balance.
Come Monday, right? Come Monday now, you go on the account. Ooh, how much I spent? What? No, man. Now the car on E. You got to get to work Monday, Tuesday. Now you got to go dip into something else. Yeah. So putting it in your head isn't good enough.
Yeah.
Putting it in your head 100%. Isn't good enough.
Yeah. And I am completely sold on budgeting. Like my wife makes fun of me when I talk about budgeting, but I budget everything is in my budget.
Everything.
And I budget to a point where I know even the let's call it play money that I'm going to spend, I budget that as well.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So there's no guessing. There's no I'm not sure if I could afford this, or I'm not sure this is what I want to spend. Like everything is budgeted, and the fourth quarter of every year is when I start budgeting for the upcoming year.
Yeah, and I think what you said is very important too, because one of the things is when you write things down, you kind of shock yourself.
Absolutely.
You shock yourself because you don't think about those little things that you buy. Starbucks, your little extra, whatever the vice is, whatever you like to buy. You don't think about that because it's my little $5 here, my little $10. You don't think about that.
When you add that up,
you see
how much you spend, you be like, oh, I guess I need to start.
I got to cut that.
Absolutely.
I got to cut that out.
Absolutely.
And so think about another, I know we have many different persons watch, but an important Bahamian saying, once you break a 50, once you break 100, that gone. You can't remember what you do with that. One little 5 here, one little 10 here. Yep. God help if you have children like me. I mean, that gone. You can't remember what you do with that. But I write things down.
Yeah.
So like anytime, and this is another example where talking to your children is important, right? Because we're in this age now where we don't spend cash. We spend, we swiping a card.
Yep.
So I was swiping my card, or I would be in shopping and I would say I didn't have cash. And so I would swipe my card and my daughter would be like, oh, Daddy, well, just use your card. No, baby. No, baby, that's not how that works.
Absolutely.
A card is cash. Yeah. There's only one salary. There's only one resource. The same way I swipe this card is the same way I would spend cash. You have to write everything down. Whether you make a withdrawal, whether you swipe in your card, you got to write things down.
She think that God free.
Yeah, you thinking it's magic. No, it ain't magic. No, that's...
Swipe your magic card.
Yeah, no magic. That's just where... Hey, Daddy had to transfer money to that card for that to work.
Yeah.
So it's not magic. You know what I mean? So writing things down is important. Like I said, two important reasons. To review, you might shock yourself, and that's where you could stay, okay, I could start saving this $5 here. Whatever your vice is, I'm not saying you can't live your best life, but you got to live within your means. And so that's one other caution that I would say. It's a cliche saying.
Ooh,
Please don't compare yourself.
that important though.
Please don't compare yourself and don't worry about what others. I promise you,
stay in your lane.
I promise you don't know what they doing and how they living.
Everybody lying.
Exactly. So don't compare yourself to others. I promise you, if you see your neighbor and he bringing in one truck of grocery and he doing this and doing that, you don't know what he doing. You don't know how he making this money. Mind your business.
Stay in your lane.
Mind your business. Stay in your financial lane.
Yeah. No, but I for budgeting for me, like, but when I develop, because I've been like expanding my budget and you know really working on my budget over the last couple of years. I would say over the last 8 years, 7-8 years, I've been able to budget to the point where like I have extra money. You know what I mean? And I have extra money to like do investments with, or to start different ventures that I'm thinking about. And it's all because of budgeting, right? Because like you say, like you'll be surprised, like when you write these numbers down, you'll be surprised either how much you spending or how much you have in surplus. Right. And with the spending, like once you look at, man, I spend in X amount of dollars or every year on this thing that isn't a necessity, it's easy for you to be like, all right, I can't do that no more. Or let's cut that in half, or let's cut that in fours and only spend X amount every quarter or whatever. You know, and budgeting just makes financial management so much easier because you're doing the math.
You can see it. You can, once you see it.
Like I tell people all the time, if you have a financial goal, just do the math, right? Set your goal, work your way backwards from it. And as you live and go on your journey, do the math towards achieving those financial goals that you set for yourself.
Yeah, because I would even give the example where another good example is buying lunch. We could see how much that's increased. The cost of it is increased.
Oh my goodness.
So back in the day, you could have get away with $50 a week on lunch. Now that's maybe a day or two.
A day.
Maybe a day or two.
That might be a meal.
That might be a meal or two now. So I mean, it's really sobering when you write it down. When you think about because think about that, right? Let's say you spend $20 a day. That's $100 a week. When you start doing the multiplication, and you seeing how much money you're spending. Bro, I mean, I know the grocery bill might not be that much cheaper, but I'm sure it's cheaper than that. I'm sure it's cheaper than that.
So you could cook your food, take your food, save the $20. That could go a long way.
That could go a very long way.
As you move forward, for sure.
So I have a question about that. Like how, so I cook a lot. I do a lot of grocery shopping. I cook a lot, but I also buy lunch. My problem is my belly. That's my vice.
Okay.
But, how you say, okay, yeah, maybe. Honestly, it is kind of a little bit less, but in terms of spending that extra time to cook, or having to go to the grocery store, stuff like that, you know, smaller stuff like gas, all that goes into that. Sometimes it is beneficial to spend $100 a week on lunch rather than say, oh, I may go to the grocery store, spend that $400 and still don't necessarily have the time to make those meals. Because I go to the grocery store, spend my $500 a month,
and still buy lunch.
No, but you make a very valid point, and everybody's different.
So the question is,
everybody's
like,
different.
Like, you know, you the recommendation is to cook, right, and to not spend money on lunch,
right?
But the cost benefit to
analysis of it,
you know, not buying lunch may not be as effective because you still have to spend money on gas, the time and energy that you spend to buy the food and to cook the food. It may just be easier to go and buy lunch.
Right.
So what's the balance? How do you determine which is best to do?
Yeah, and so that's a very good point. Yes, that's a very good point because everybody's lifestyle is different. So depending on your career, your profession, but that's why writing it down is so important because now you could now see both sides. So based on my life, based on my career, based on whatever the factors are, is it more beneficial for me to say buy lunch every day or buy grocery? So now, but you're now able to make a decision that would allow you to say, okay, I got to do either one. You can't do both, of course, right? So you would now be able to make a more informed decision is the word I was looking for. And so once you're able to see that, but then still, you would have to now say, what type of lunch am I going to eat every day?
But even with...
So I mean...
Like
it's still a part of that too.
We say budgeting, right? And I think budgeting can work into like being able to prepare the food that you buy from the grocery store, right? And we just call it scheduling, right? So if you're saying that, you know, you buy the groceries but you don't have time to cook, then I feel like you should make time So whether that's on Sundays at the beginning of the week,
Right, you cook for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, and you don't like my wife, for example. My wife is cooked primarily from meal to meal. So this thinking of cooking for 2 to 3 days like was foreign to her when she and I first started dating, because one, she don't like to eat day old food, right? But I could eat the same thing for a week, and I think that's just because that's the way I grew up, the discipline that I had, especially with like my diet and exercise, and like that's something that is natural to me. So for me to cook a meal and it lasts me 3 or 4 days, like that's easy. So it's easy for me to have lunch for 3-4 days out of the week because I cook enough for that time period. But for you, like, are you one of those persons that you like to cook from meal to meal, or you're only able to eat?
Usually, like, okay, how my system is kind of set. Like on Sundays, I cook for like Sunday to Tuesday. But I say I like eat, so I might eat Sunday, Monday food.
So you usually eat Monday food, Sunday too.
Sunday night.
So you just right. All right. So I mean,
it's a discipline thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a discipline thing, but I guess. And I also have the issue, I don't like to have that overnight food as well.
Yeah. And I think that's a big one too, because a lot of people don't like to eat leftovers.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
But I still think it comes down to seeing the numbers.
Yeah.
Right? Because even the example that he gave was you may end up eating the food quicker than you thought.
Yeah.
So it may not last up until 2 or 3 days.
Yep.
Right? It still comes, the word like you said is discipline. Right? Because once you see, and you now see, okay, if I eat the food in 2 days instead of 3, now I'm going to spend money that I didn't intend to spend. And so it goes back to your goal. And if I do that, and we do the multiplying factor, now I'm going to spend money this month, $100 or $200 more this month than I planned on spending. And now that would take me away from trying to get to this goal. So once again, the goal helps you. And that's why goal setting is important, because the goal helps you to discipline yourself.
I mean, but another side to it, right? So I know we're talking about finances and stuff, but like when you buy in food, like you're not cooking the food, so you don't know what's going into the food, right? So look at it like this. If I continue to buy like fast food, for example, it might be cheaper for me to like not have to buy groceries or cook, but the effect that food has on my body may become more expensive to me as I get older, because there are health issues that come up, and then like the money that we saving or trying to save could go towards me trying to get better or get healthier. Because I didn't take the time to cook for myself and put into my body what is good for me to eat, right? So I mean, it's a lot of ways that you could look at it. There's a lot of ways that you could develop a mindset to discipline yourself to say, all right, I can't spend this money on buying food as opposed to cooking food. But just some perspectives, man. Like I say, all of us are different.
All of us are different.
Things that works for me may not work for you. So
Correct.
You got to find like what works for you.
Yeah. And so last thing I would say on budgeting is that's what we were talking about. Make sure your budget is designed just for you. So if you're saying that you're going to have a budget for lunch, that's fine. Budget it. That's all we're saying. If that's how you want to allocate your money, allocate it that way. But just make sure allocate it that way so that when you spend that money, you stay within that range.
And it's all about discipline. Like if you allot $20 for lunch a day, don't spend 21. Don't spend 20.05.
Right.
Right? $20. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of staying disciplined and staying within your budget.
Correct.
For sure. So how do we balance, just shifting gears a bit, how do we balance saving for retirement, right? As a goal, right? Paying off debt, and then investing, right? Because we have folks that are they want to invest, but they have all of these other responsibilities where it's they want to save for when they aren't working, be able to continue to support themselves. And then they have these bills, these responsibilities that they have, whether it's a mortgage or credit card statements or utilities, like all these things that they have to pay, right? It's a requirement that they pay because they entered into an agreement. And then still, find money or find time or ways that you can also invest. Like how do you balance the three of those?
If I'm being honest, that is life. Juggling that, balancing that is life. Is month to month. Because I think no matter what your financial position is, you're always going to be trying to juggle paying my day-to-day, investing for today, and investing for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So especially if you have kids now, you're trying to get them started. You're thinking about them as well, and so juggling that, having all those apples or juggling all those balls in one jar is very difficult.
Pause.
It's very difficult. Juggling all those are very difficult because one thing you have to do is you have to balance. You have to think about the short term. One thing I would say is the short term debt.
Yep.
The short term debt is very important.
Yep.
So if you have, let's say, a consumer loan that's 3 to 5 years, you want to start finding, the first thing you want to do is tackle that. You want to say, how do I get rid of that? Because that $100 a month or $200 a month or $300 a month that you're spending towards that could be your saving money.
Sure.
So I would say if you have small consumer debt, start with that. Start making payments because generally speaking, the interest is higher, but you could also pay as much as you want on that as often as you want. So whether it be $100 a month extra you're trying to put on that or $50, and that even comes back to your lunch money there too.
Yep.
So that money can kind of go towards that and you get rid of that small consumer debt, right? So tackle the consumer debt first is what I would say, because that's money that you can use to invest. But you also have to be realistic. And don't do it to a point where you're struggling every month, because you don't want to be saving and investing to the point where your day-to-day expenses are falling down, right? So you have to be realistic about that as well. But it does go back to what we said, where I said pay yourself first. Because for me personally, of course, money that comes out of my salary, it goes to my investment account before I even see it. So honestly, when it comes to, like, let's say my pay slip or the money that's in my actual bank account, in my mind, that's all I make.
That's all you have.
That's all I make.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I make. That's what I'm working from.
That's all the money that is.
Yeah, that's it. I don't.
Got you.
So like, like my investment account, my retirement account, like I don't even know how to log into those things. Like I'll have to go look that up kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not something I look at because it's not money I have access to.
Sure.
So you have to be honest with yourself, firstly, but you also have to start finding ways that you can start investing and saving for the future, right? And that may mean, that may mean like how we just, we're coming out of COVID where, all these persons start with these side hustles and different things. It might mean you have to come up with a second stream of income.
Yep.
And we've all had to do that. These day and age, I'm sorry, one stream of income, that ain't gonna be enough. You gotta have part two. You need it.
So you mentioned debt, right? And this was something that came up on one of my last pods, and I said this thing, and I want to get your opinion on it. So if we have some debt, I'm sure all of us have a certain level of debt that we're dealing with, and you have this influx of revenue that comes in, right? This influx of funds that come in. You have people that would take as much of the funds that they can and put it towards the debt, like to pay off the debt. Do you agree with that principle? Is that something that you would recommend people do?
That's a case by case basis, if I'm being honest, because every situation is different. I've had that conversation with persons. Let's say they got some gratuity money, or someone passed away and they got some insurance money. So that conversation always comes up. How do I allocate this money? What do I do with it? Well, firstly, I would always say you got to sit down with it. Don't just pick up and do the first thing that comes to your mind, because that's probably not the best way to use it. But I would say you sit down with it. And this is where the budget, of course, comes in, because now you would have all of your debt in front of you. So what's your smaller debt, what's your larger debt, what's your goals, what are some of the things you want to do, and now we can kind of figure out how you should allocate it. So I would say that's a case-by-case basis. There isn't one blanket answer to that. Is the best way I could say that.
I guess I agree with that, and I guess that's a more sound way to look at it.
Yeah, no, that's not really one way to answer that, because
what I said was, like, you shouldn't put the bulk of that money towards that. Like, you should accumulate what needs to be accumulated to the debt to like control the debt where it doesn't get out of hand. But the majority of the money should be put towards some type of investment where you could reap and benefit from it, in the future.
Yeah, because what I would say too, and kind of goes back, it's piggyback on what you said, because if, for example, let's say you had this mortgage debt, right? and you put all of that there. With all due respect, that's dead money.
That's gone.
Yeah, that's dead
you,
money,
you
right?
can't do nothing
So
with that
what
no
you
more.
what you could do is you could now put that money towards something that could do two things.
Right.
It can bring you some income and pay the debt.
Exactly.
So I think that's kind of what you're
that's
referring to, right?
That's, so just put it towards something where you could get some
Exactly.
interest that allow you to cover the debt,
Right.
and have some money
And
for
some have
yourself.
some-
You know what I mean? So,
Absolutely.
too many times I see people that get this influx of revenue, this influx of cash,
I have nothing to show for it.
and they throw it at debt, or they just spend it, right? And you ask them,
That's
hey,
even
where all
worse.
this cash you got, and you can't speak for it.
Right. Yeah, that's even worse.
You know what I mean? So that's just something I like I said, it came up in a previous pod, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your opinion on it.
Yeah, it's a case by case, but I think that definitely you should try to manage it in a way where you put something on the debt. And so that goes to a point where we say make principal payments as much as you can, as often as you can. But also you want to invest it, or you want to put it in something that's earning something for you. So you could kind of do two things at one time.
So, we talk about investing, but I think in order to become wise, or in order to become a master of your money, you have to be educated. You have to get educated, right? So what are the best ways that someone can financially educate themselves? What are some platforms that you would recommend? Some books that you would recommend they read? Like, just let's talk about some different ways that we can get financially educated.
Yes, good question. So we talked about online. There are so many different avenues. There are a lot of good authors out there that have very sound information. They have workbooks. I was looking the other day. Of course, everyone is familiar with Dave Ramsey. He has a financial kit that gives you like these 5 steps. And yeah, it gives you the 5 steps. It's a kit that you could follow. It has a budgeting worksheet. So it goes back to that too, where you don't have to have an app per se. If you're not a technical person,
Yep.
You could use Excel. You could do basic. You could write it down. So there's so many avenues out there. Podcasts just like ours.
Dave Ramsey has a podcast.
Absolutely,
It's a very good podcast.
And so I've even found myself on my way to work. Something like
something
little bites,
educational.
little 5 to 10 minutes.
100%.
5 to 10 minutes, especially for me, as someone who talks about it. 5 to 10 minutes. I just trying to get an understanding of what's out there, what's current. So podcast is another way. But the only thing, the caveat that I would say is be careful with the information you get, and make sure that you get a second opinion on it, because there's a lot of persons in the space talking, and sometimes they are not genuine. Is the best way I could say that.
Wolf and sheep.
Yeah, they're
sheep's
not
clothing.
genuine in terms of the
Sheep
information. Yeah, the information they're giving you, and they're kind of doing it for their own personal gain. And so you have to be careful with that.
Yep.
But there's no excuse. Whatever the investment that you've heard about, you can read it. You could look it up. You could say, "Hey, I want to learn more about it." And one of the next caveat I would say is, before you do anything, before you invest, before you save, before you do anything, ask questions. If you're not sure, ask questions.
And if it don't make sense, don't do it.
Don't do it. But ask questions.
Don't invest in
Yeah.
something you don't understand.
Yeah.
Like I always tell people that. And if you do it and you lose money, don't blame no one else but you.
Yeah.
Right? I
Read the fine print too.
always.
Read the
Fine
fine
print is the most important print on the paper.
Read the fine print. Read the fine
man.
print.
Nah, that's great, man. That's great. So in closing, what was like some some advice you would give to young individuals, right? I want to focus on the
Yes.
younger individual. What advice would you give them? Someone say between the age of
18 to 25.
18 to 25, perfect age. Like, what would be your advice to them to become or to start their journey on becoming financially independent?
It goes back to what we said earlier. Everything that you want to do in life takes money, right? So no matter what your dream is, no matter what your goal is, it takes money to do that, right? And so you can't be afraid to say, I have to do things differently than the way my parents did it. I know our parents would have shown us different things. They would have taught us different things. But this is a different world we live in now, where expenses are high, inflation is high, cost of living is high. So you have to do things differently. And starting from your young age would help you to now live a different type of life. And so get information. Get information. It starts with your mindset, right? You can't just sit down and depend on your parents. you have to now take the bull by the horn, as they would say, and do something different.
Take some responsibility.
Yeah, you have to. You have to, because now the things that you want to do, they're not your parents' dreams, they're your dreams.
Yep.
So what are you doing to fund those dreams? It's all well and good to say, oh, I want to live this different life. I want to travel. I want to live my best life. That costs money. That costs money.
Yeah.
Right? And so it doesn't matter what it is that you want to do. I don't care what you want to do. Travel the world, whatever it is, influence, whatever it is you want to do, it takes money to do that. And so start now. Start now. Change the mindset that our grandparents, our parents would have had. Start now. Don't think that, oh, in 5 years I'll start. Or when I get this perfect job. That perfect job may not come.
Never come. Yep.
Especially in this economy and this market.
Yep.
That perfect job may not come. And I want us also, especially for young persons, we have to be realistic. We have to be realistic about what it's going to take for us to reach those dreams. And the fact that it doesn't matter if you start with $1, it doesn't matter if you start with $20, whatever it is, start now, right? Because at your age, I mean, the power of compounding interest is powerful.
Powerful, bro.
Powerful,
My goodness.
right? Because every month you're earning $1. So every month you're earning $1. You're earning $1, right? And so you're now going to be able to do the things that you want to do. And when it comes to your educational career, your educational goals that would affect your career, all of that takes money, right? So there are so many avenues now. I mean, there's so many ways that you could raise money, or you could start your journey with less money and start working your way up, right? And so I would encourage persons to start now and get advice.
Yeah.
Get advice. Talk to someone within your field, even, as we always say, and find out how they did it, right? But then also use that information. It's 2024, right? So there's so many different ways you could make money, right? So you have to look at that and what works best for you, but you have to start now.
Yeah. And you know, my advice would be to, in everything that you do, regardless of your professional goals, your educational goals, incorporate some financial management class or some financial management form of education for yourself. Like make that something that you
make it personal.
Yeah, make it personal to you. Something that is it's non-negotiable. Like I must become financially literate so that I can educate myself in money management. I think that's key.
So one last cliche saying that we have to end with is, you can't do what you don't know.
Absolutely.
You can't do what you don't know, right? So you're looking at you might be comparing yourself, or you might be looking at what you want to do and saying, I can't do this, or I can't afford to do this. How do you know you can't do it if you've never actually read up on anything to say, can you know, what is it going to take for you to do it?
Yep.
So you can't do what you don't know.
Yeah.
So get education first. Get the knowledge first. This is why financial literacy is important. This is why this pod today is important, because the information that you get, it can start to change your mindset. It can start to change the way you think about whatever it is you want to do. And so the only way you could do that is if you get the information. You get the right information. Yeah. So financial literacy is the key.
For sure.
It's
For
key.
sure, man. Thank you for that, man. Go ahead.
Before okay, so like, what about to the average consumer, persons who want to get into investing and stuff, like y'all gonna speak about like the avenues, especially locally. Like someone as me, who I invested, I lost, and I always joke with guys who were losing on crypto and stuff. So it's like, could you like speak on any like avenue that you would recommend? How do I get into investment? Like, everybody know about the Bahamian Stock Exchange, but it's very like dead. I use Prosper personally for like US stocks and stuff, but like those avenues, like how could you like give some form of insight on the avenues locally where you say start with $1, but where do I start with $1? You can't go to the bank with $1 and be like, hey, let me open up a fixed account, stuff like that. So something like that, if you could mention that for like the consumer who just want to know.
Yeah, the question was someone, a young person, like we're recommending to start now, start as you're young. But the question is, where do I start? Like, you know, if I'm not aware of the opportunities or the avenues that are available to me to start investing, you know, where do I start? Who do I turn to get myself on the journey of becoming financially free?
Sure. So the first thing that I would say is a savings account, right? So it doesn't have to be a savings account at a bank. It could be a savings account at a financial institution where, for example, at my company, CFAL, you only need $100 to start, right? And $25 a month. So you have, and for those watching, you have other safe types of accounts just like that, where you don't need a lot to start. It's a minimum of 25, even like a savings account at a bank, where some banks have savings accounts, especially for younger persons, where they don't necessarily charge you the monthly fees. But it's another avenue for you to save and start to build up some residual money as well.
Yeah.
So I would say a small savings account, such as that. You have CDs or term deposits, which is another avenue. But a savings account would be the first thing that I would say.
But even before that, I think, like, as a young individual that's looking to invest, like Richard said, you can't do what you don't know, right? So in order to be knowledgeable of the avenues that you have to go looking and be in search of those avenues. So, you could walk into CFAL and be like, hey, this is what I want to do. Who do I talk to? And sit down and have a conversation with a financial manager. I think that's the best place to start, because they could advise you on, like, hey, how much do you have? Okay, well, let's think about starting here or doing this. And you don't have to go with just one company, right? There are a number of companies that are available both here and internationally, right? You could pick up the phone and call someone, pick up the phone and call an international company and ask for advice on, like, where do I start? I have X amount of dollars. Here's my budget for investments. What would we recommend? And I would say talk to a number of persons so that you can get a good sense of what the opportunities are, and then you could make an informed decision for yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So before we go, I always ask each guest this question, and I want you to share your insight on this. And the question is, how do you define success?
Yeah. So success, that's the word we're all searching for, right? I think how you define success, it changes as you go through this journey called life, because what I would have considered success at 20, at 25, at 30, I think it's changed so much because of the fact that I now have kids.
Life.
Yeah, I mean, life is a journey. And so I think success for me, how I define it is, one, your financial freedom and your financial independence. And then I think also success is also finding that thing, that purpose that makes you happy. And I think it's also biblical, where once you find that particular thing, now it takes care of you, and it allows you to do other things that you want to do. And so I think success is finding your place in this world and finding where you can contribute to this world, and where you could like, that thing that makes you happy, that thing that you do without effort, as they say. And so I think success for me is finding that and making sure that I leave my mark for my children.
Absolutely.
And my children's children, and making sure that they have a head start. Because I never thought about, you always hear the saying of making sure your children have a head start. But I think once you become a parent, now that kind of hits home differently.
Means
it
becomes
real. Yeah, it sobers you up a little bit. It hits
yeah.
differently. So I think success has so many different markers, but I think it all ties back to finding that thing that makes you happy, that job, that career, that passion that makes you happy, and that allows you to take care of your family, and that allows you to set your family up for success and financial success. And so success for me is doing all of those things that allows my family to be happy.
No, absolutely. I think that's a good word. So hopefully you guys were able to take something from that. Richard, thank you for again agreeing to be on this pod. Thank you for sharing your insights. I think that you've helped me even with some of the things that you said, and some things that I want to go and discover for myself. All right, so this brings us to the point of the pod where I leave it to be a milestone, and the milestone for today is simply this: when you invest, you are buying a day that you don't have to work. All right, and that's a quote by Aya Lorea. When you invest, you're buying a day that you don't have to work. So investing now helps you to work towards being more free in the future, right? Having days that you could do whatever you want. But the time is now. The time is now to start, regardless of what age you are. If you're much younger, it's better, right? Because you have a longer life to live theoretically. But when you start investing and seriously investing, right, intentional investments, you free up your time in the future. So I want to encourage each of us. I want to challenge each of us to start our investments towards our future now. All right. So that brings us to the end of this pod. Hopefully there was some information that was said that you are able to internalize and apply to your life. Richard, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
We got to do this again.
Yes.
I'm sure there's a lot of financial topics that we haven't covered, and I'd love to dive a little deeper into some of those. All right. But until next time, you guys always know that the vision and goal of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. So until next time, you guys stay blessed.